Tzvi, thank you. Babad, thank you. When Tzvi asked me to speak here this year at the Torah Umesorah President's Conference, so I asked him, I said, well, what do you want me to say? We're starting off a new project in Israel, Amudim, Israel. And I said, you want to hear about cases? Should I discuss some of the numbers that we see? It's not so different than what you see in America. And he said to me something very interesting. That's really what I'm going to talk about. Is that where does the chinuch stop for the children in our school systems? At what point do we say, okay, we've done enough? High school? Seminary? Yeshiva? First year of the marriage? Kollel? When? And the truth is that it never stops. The chinuch of a child continues until maybe they have children, maybe after they have children, even for his grandchildren. And I think it's part of the reason why Amudim Israel started is because we found that there was a huge gap and a big problem just for the American students and yeshiva guys who came to Israel. And they would get there, and unfortunately a lot of things would come out. And unfortunately a lot of issues would come up, and there was no place to turn to. They were getting calls from Israel, from America, about horrible stories that were happening without any shmirah, without any pikuach. So those of you that get the email, I sent the email out the other week, about an 8-year-old girl from an Anglo family who was raped by an American yeshiva boy who was there learning. He was a friend of the family. Apparently he was there quite often. What we know right now it's only the girl, but there are other issues and some of the other children, and we might find out that there was more. Right now the authorities are dealing with it, but we're dealing with the family. We're trying to focus on what they need and how we can help get them services. But where was everybody else when this guy went off to yeshiva? Where was he? Where was his Rebbe, his friends, his mashgiach from America? Nobody knew. He had no history. I personally find that hard to believe. But it's not our job to do the investigation. Our job is to help the people that are victims. We've heard from Rabbi Blad and Tzvi and Zev about the idea of data collection and the importance of what the numbers say. And many times we can throw numbers around and they sound like they're mugzam, they're completely blown out of proportion. And there's part of those numbers that when they're mentioned that makes us very uncomfortable. And the first thing we say is we deny it. We say it's not really true, they're blowing it, they're making it more, they get X amount of calls, they get calls and they hang up, or the call's about something else, or it's the same person calling about the same case. And in the beginning, I have to be honest, I was also very skeptical. And I went to the office in New York, and I sat there for a week. And I sat with Tzvi, and I sat with the case managers. And I was there for hours upon hours upon hours, and there were hundreds and hundreds of calls every single day, different calls. How do you keep track? Every single thing that comes into the Amudim offices, just like in relief, and Rabbi Bad can attest to this, is documented, is written down, is cross-referenced. If it's not new, it's an old one, it goes in the old pile. If it's a new call, it is written down as a new call. The person, Rabbi Bad was telling me, I was talking to him before about earlier years and what they're doing with some of their numbers in relief. And he's saying they had many, many more calls years ago for bipolar disorder. Recently, they've had a lot less. He said one of the reasons they think is because they had a backlog, and a lot of people who had bipolar disorder called way back when. But today they're getting those calls and they're dealing with them, but they're not getting the numbers that they once had because they had no place to turn. I just want to touch upon, I know it's getting late, the idea of important metrics. We've been discussing a lot about data and metrics and understanding it and the amount of knowledge and transparency and accountability that it can actually give an organization. For people to understand and to see, and you can find out exactly what is going on at any given time in those organizations. So 2 examples I just want to talk about where data could help. Rabbi Babar earlier had spoken about alcoholism in the frum community. Balabatim, Kiddush clubs. But in Eretz Yisrael, there's a phenomenon now that Bochrim, 17, 18, 19, 20, that is across the board, every yeshiva, from the best, from the Aleph to Beis, the Gimels, it doesn't make a difference, where alcoholism is completely accepted. Nobody talks about it. Nobody says it's a problem. Says it's just part of life. Nothing's being done. So the fact that you're seeing it on a balabatim level isn't really surprising, because we're seeing it much earlier. Yes, there are many reasons why in Eretz Yisrael it's like there's a lot of freedom, there's a lot of bars, alcohol age is lower, the legal age, but I don't think the legalities of it has ever gotten into the way of somebody who wants to get it. So we don't know. So I have a hunch, but I don't know what the truth is. One of the ways to find out what the truth is to be able to follow and to document and to see the cases and to see what happens and to follow through with them, and then we'll actually know where it starts from. What's the cover-up? Are they using alcohol as a means to numb the pain of abuse, of a broken family? Or are they addicted? And the flip side of that is really good research in the frum community, which today is actually happening, as Zev alluded to. There's a phenomenal institute, it's called the Institute of Applied Research and Community Collaboration, ARC. It's actually run by Dr. Yitzi Schechter, somebody who I worked with when I was working in Muncie as a clinician. And Dr. Schechter did an unbelievable study. I think it was the first study that was done to understand. It was the divorce study in the frum world. In the frum world, some of the numbers that it came out with, they interviewed 500 respondents to the study. There were 310 divorced respondents, and 194, it's actually 404, 504, 194 respondents who were married. And they asked a slew of questions to find out what are the contributing factors to divorce in the frum world. There was a lot of data, and he's still mining the data and going through it. But these are some of the early results from his research. First of all, divorce in the frum world, in this study, is holding at about 10%. If you think about it, compared to the rest of the world, that's amazing. The marriage rate in the frum world is at about 80 to 85%. It's most of the people in the frum world, you do. It's part of our value system to get married. But the 10% that gets divorced, what he uncovered was that 57% of those divorces were acrimonious, contentious, and had tremendous issues going along the way through the divorce process. Why that is, everyone can have a guess. But in terms of the contributing factors to what actually causes or potentially causes divorce, verbal and emotional abuse was from one of the highest metrics. 50% of women said it was one of the highest, 28% for men. Being put down and demeaned, 49% for women, 37% for men. Sexual issues, 42% for women, 32% for men. Mental illness, everyone always said mental illness is a big one, 40% for women and 29% for men. Financial differences, almost no discrepancy, 29 and 28%. Different life goals, also very low, 29% and 23%. But what they found in the study is that in sexual abuse, after asking these respondents, sexual abuse was 7 times more likely and more common among divorced respondents than married individuals. Let me repeat that. It's 7 times more common. Not 1, not 2, 7 times more common they found it amongst the divorced couples than amongst the married individuals. Physical abuse was only 3 times more common in the divorced couples. Sexual abuse is something that destroys a person when they're young, destroys a person when they're an adolescent, destroys a person when they're a young married person. It destroys families from the top down or from the bottom up. It doesn't differentiate between what type of Jew you are, what type of person you are. It has an ultimate destructive factor. One of the ideas was that there can be an implementation of specific protocols for chassan kala teachers to notice, to figure out, to see signs of abuse. People who have been abused, been sexually abused, they can have wonderful marriages and have amazing lives. But it has to be detected, and it has to be treated. And there has to be speech. Tzvi has broken down all the barriers. But there's always more to do. There's more to go. In Israel, one of the things that we found, and one of the calls, very common calls that we get, are from seminary and yeshiva students. Finally disclosing for the first time in their life to anybody that they've been abused. Why? Avir Deretz Yisrael makes you as machkim, but why are they disclosing this? I have a theory. Other people have theories. One theory is because when they come to Israel, they're thousands and thousands of miles away for the first time from their abuser, or from the environment of their abuse, from reliving that trauma over and over and over again, and for the first time in their life, they're actually free. And they're able to open and ask and reach and hopefully receive the treatment that they need, and it's better late than never. If we can reach them then, we can reach all those divorced couples, all those people, all those marriages, all those children of divorced couples, and hopefully be able to treat them and help them through it. My own theory is that I think when you go to Eretz Yisrael, for many of us that learned in yeshiva in Israel, in the seminary girls, you go to many different places for Shabbos. You go to cousins, friends, uncles, aunts, friends of cousins of uncles and uncles and aunts of friends and cousins, and you end up in so many different places in Eretz Yisrael, from top to bottom, everywhere on the religious spectrum. And you see, sometimes for the first time, multiple types of normal, healthy relationships that some of these people have never seen. You're exposed to what healthy life looks like in a different prism. And that is very jarring for a child who's 18, 19 years old and is used to their parents or their family or their environment. And that's all they know, that's all they see. So it's no wonder that they're able to open and realize there's something else here and I don't have it. And I want that. And that call, that hesitancy to call, or to have a place to call, that's the need for them to be able to come out with it and be able to get it, because we are saving the next generation. I just want to close with a small idea. I know the idea, the slogan for the conference is that I'm not alone, because where do we find the first place in the Torah that it talks about friendship? Where's the first place that it actually talks about a type of relationship that is not a father, not a mother, not a brother, not a sister, not a husband, not a wife? Friends. I think, don't quote me, but I think the first time we find the idea of friendship in the Torah is when Yehuda was basically excommunicated from his brothers, and he finds himself in a foreign place, and he has a friend. The Torah calls him Chira, was Re'ehu Ha'adulam. Was his friend. Who cares? But listen to the type of friend that he was. We know the story with Yehuda. He goes, and he meets a prostitute, and it's Tamar. He doesn't know who she is. And what does he do? He comes back, he gives his coat, he gives his staff, he gives his ring as collateral. And eventually he's going to send payment. He gives the collateral to Chira, and he says, go pay her. And he goes. And he doesn't just pay her, he looks for her. He tries to find her. He looks here, he looks there, he comes back, he says, Yehuda, Veinena, lo matzati ota. I didn't find her. She's not there. And Yehuda says, okay, it's meant to be. What is the root of the word Re'ehu? It doesn't call him Chaver. Re'ehu, the root of that word is Ra, is bad. A true friend, this is the first time the Torah hits on it. The true friend, the true relationship is there when a person is in a bad situation. That is a friend. That is a person who will go no matter what my friend needs, no matter what whatever it is, I have to go pay for the Zaina, I will do it, because that's what he needs. And right after that, we find that he admits and everything's amazing. But that's the first place we find it. When somebody is in crisis, when somebody is in their deepest depths of Gehenna, and they have nowhere else to go and nowhere else to turn, it's easy to be friendly with somebody and to be there for somebody when everything's fine. But you're there for them, and you are there, that is Re'ehu. And we know the mitzvah of V'hafta l'reach l'kamoicha. So I hope that we'll be able to continue to grow and to continue to break down barriers and not to take no for an answer and be the friends for the people that need it. Thank you.